Happy Friday, welcome back to Drinking by My Shelf. Today I'm doing a video that was requested by Natalie J. Beatty, and that was an updated TBR tour. So the last time I did this was in July 2018, so like a year and a half ago. I went through and showed you off all of the books I have on my TBR. I will link to that video below if you want to go check it out, but I just rewatched it myself and found that I've done better than I expected. I actually only have 8 of those books that were in that video still on my TBR, and 6 of them are kind of a set, so technically does that just count as 3 books? I don't know. And other than that, I did actually read or unhaul all of the books that were on that TBR. And of course you probably know I do every month do balancing the books, so because of that, like at the end of some months I have to unhaul books from my TBR if I haven't read enough. So once you guys have seen this video, you might be able to help me and tell me like which of these books you think I should prioritise reading, which ones do you think I can unhaul. So my TBR shelf is arranged chronologically from the order that I added books to it. So the first ones here are the ones I've had on my TBR for the longest, and these are the ones you'll recognise from the last video. The book that I have owned for the longest since 2016, I bought this one, is Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I can't believe I still haven't read this book. This is absolutely a 5-star prediction for me, and I think that's maybe why I keep not picking it up, because I keep like obsessively waiting for the perfect time to read it, but there is no perfect time, so I need to just make time for this one. Next, I have a stack of 6 Persephone Press books, and I had 8 in the last video, so I've only read 2 in the last 2 years. It's ridiculous because I've in total in my life read 3 Persephone Press books, and all of them have been 5-star reads. They've all been amazing. I don't know why I only pick up these books like once a year. I think it's like a perceived effort. In my head I feel like these are going to be hard books to read and that it's going to like be quite heavy going, but that doesn't seem to be the case, because actually the 3 I've read were really easy reads, really page turning and beautiful and like so powerful. So I need to get into these, and I will. Delayed New Year's resolution: read your Persephone Press books. And then the only other book that was on my TBR shelf in that last video was this one, Patrick Melrose Volume 2. I read Volume 1, which was like the first 3 books, really quickly, right when I just started my job at Pam Millen actually, because we did a video about it, and I really enjoyed them. They were really unexpected. So I brought the second volume, which has the final 2 books, home straight away, convinced I was going to read them straight away, and then nearly 2 years later, of course, I still haven't. And now I'm almost at the stage where it's like, do I have to reread the first volume before I can keep going with this? So that's probably why this one just keeps getting pushed back, but I will read it at some point. Next I have The Unseen by Roy Jacobson. So this is one that I got. I went to Mr. B's, which is this lovely bookshop in Bath, and they have this personalised service where you talk to a bookseller. I filmed this for book breaks, so I'll link to that video. It was really good fun. You get like a whole session where you talk to this bookseller about everything that you like and don't like in books, and then they recommend you this really personalised stack of books, and I ended up buying 4 or 5 of them, I think, and I've got 3 of them still on my TBR. So one of them is The Unseen. This is a Norwegian book. It's translated from the Norwegian. And from what I can remember from what the guy told me about it, it's about this family living on this really small island community, like really close-knit, and the girl who grows up there and dreams of something bigger and wants to leave. Something like that. But on the back it starts talking about like tragedy and the modern world, so some of that thrown in there as well. Hummingbird by Tristan Hughes was also from Mr. B's. I can't remember anything about this one. It's set in the northern Canadian wilderness. It's about a 15-year-old who lives this isolated life with his father. Again, I think that's something I was talking a lot about, that I love these like small town isolation, like people not feeling they fit in with their community. And then the final book that I still have from there is The Next Step in the Dance by Tim Gautreaux. And this one is actually published by Mr. B. Again, similar theme. This is about a married couple. This time they're in the States. Paul is really contented like living in this small town, whereas the wife is really ambitious, and it's about like their relationship and the conflict there. I've got Nell Dunn, Talking to Women. So this one was given to me by Lena Norms. We did a Secret Santa, like a book themed Secret Santa. Again, that was filmed for book break, so I'll link to that below. And she chose this one for me. So this is non-fiction, and it's just like a series of interviews that Nell Dunn did with women about their lives. It sounds so my kind of thing. It's non-fiction, which is probably why it's still been on my TBR shelf for just over a year now, because I just pick up non-fiction less often, but I am excited for this one. Another non-fiction, Emily Wilding Davison, The Martyr Suffragette by Lucy Fisher. This was a Christmas present Last Christmas, which is a biography of Emily Davison, so great. Conversations with Friends, Sally Rooney. I have not read this or Normal People yet, and people are so divided on which one they like better. Some people prefer this and hate the other one, some people it's the other way around, so I'm intrigued. This is the one I've got. I don't know which one appeals to me more, but this is the one I've got. I think my mum gave me this one because she'd already read it, so I will read this at some point and join in that conversation. Another non-fiction is Bookworm by Lucy Mangan. It's a really beautiful book, and this is Lucy Mangan's kind of memoir of her childhood reading and the books that meant a lot to her as she was growing up, which sounds like it's going to be so relatable to me because books were like everything to me when I was growing up. My House is Falling Down by Mary Loudon. Here's a proof I've got. I took this one home, like, again, almost a year ago, so desperate to read it and still just haven't got to it. But this is about a woman who is married, and she falls in love with somebody else while still staying in love with her husband, and they basically reach this agreement where she is allowed to pursue both loves, but I don't think that either of the men are particularly like happy about it. They just agree to it, and it's got this like tagline, is it still infidelity if nobody lies? So I just thought that sounds really interesting, like questioning our assumptions about relationships and monogamy. This is The Woman in the Photograph. This is a proof that Katie from Books and Things gave me a while ago. It says it's an empowering feminist and moving novel, so that sounds just my kind of thing. And it's about a junior photographer in the 60s who struggles to be taken seriously, and then also like a parallel timeline, another thing that I just love in books, of present day. A photograph that this photographer took is like the centre of a new feminist exhibition. Sounds lovely. Okay, here I have Frog Music by Emma Donoghue. I've read quite a few Emma Donoghue books and really enjoyed all of them. This one sounds a bit strange. So it's based on a true story, and it's like a murder case, but it also sounds a bit sexy. So it's like the main character is a burlesque dancer and a sex worker, and she's trying to solve the murder of her friend who was a cross-dresser at a time when that was a crime. It's set in San Francisco. Just sounds a lot of fun. I really like Emma Donoghue. This is The People in the Trees by Hanya Yanagihara. So she wrote A Little Life, which is another very divisive book that I absolutely loved. We read that one for my book club, and then this is actually her first novel, but I don't think it was published in the UK until after A Little Life, but I might be wrong about that. But one of my friends from my book club read this one after the fact and really enjoyed it. They said it was very, very strange. I've heard a lot of people saying this book is very, very strange, but like just kind of mesmerising. So I really want to read this one. Now this shows how behind I am, because this book is now fully out, and here I just have like a very early bind up. This is Precious You by Helen Monks Takar. I got this one at an HQ publicity event. And it's about like a millennial in the workplace and the rivalry with an older woman at her job. So it cuts to the heart of questions surrounding toxic female rivalry. I'm not sure about that. Like, as long as it's a kind of feminist spin on that, then cool, but I don't want it to just be like a female rivalry book. Okay, this one, Family of Origin by CJ Hauser. This is one that I so nearly unhauled, and then at the last minute decided I was still really interested in it, so I took it back and then still haven't read it. And this is a proof. This book came out July 2019, so I'm so behind the times. I've forgotten again what it's about. Siblings whose father recently drowned while trying to prove his like weird evolutionary theories. So his children kind of go on this mission trying to understand his research. So it says it's delightfully funny and fiercely original. There's just something about this book that keeps calling me back and making me not unhaul it, even though I just keep like not really wanting to pick it up and read it. Then I've got The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. I've never read any Lisa Jewell. I probably will read this one this week for Thrillerathon. It's on my TBR. So hopefully I will get to that one and then clear this one off and then decide whether or not I like Lisa Jewell, and then she's written loads, so if I do like her, fantastic, there's loads more for me to read. I bought this one, Why Women Have Better Sex Under Socialism, at Pages of Cheshire, which is a bookshop that sells books by women and trans people and gender non-conforming people. It's a really great bookshop. And I've just, you know, the title of this book I've had my eye on this for so long, so when I saw it at that bookshop I thought time to buy it. but I haven't read it yet. Oh, I talked earlier about Emma Donoghue. This is a proof of her latest book, which again I'm behind on because it is now out. This is Akin. So I really want to catch up on both of these by Emma Donoghue. This one sounds like a really sweet like family story. It's about an old man who suddenly gets custody of his great nephew after his parents, one of them dies and one of them is put in prison, I think. So they're like very, very different. They're related, but they don't know each other. They've had very different lives, and it's about them bonding. Sounds very sweet. I have the Psychopath Test here by John Ronson, which really interests me. So this is him kind of trying to discover like what a psychopath actually is, and like if there is a test that you could do. So I think he talks to lots of people, and it's just something I know like so little about that it's interesting. Another one I am planning to read this week for Thrillerathon. This is When I Was 10 by Fiona Cummins. So Fiona Cummins is the author of The Neighbour, which is a thriller that I loved. She also wrote Rattle and The Collector, which were a series about this like serial killer who collects bones, and they're really, really creepy. I really like her. She's a really, really dark thriller writer, and this is a book, I think, about a child who kills her parents. So that sounds just up my dark, creepy alley. Then I've got my Proof of the Sin Eater by Megan Campisi. So this is a historical fiction novel, but it's kind of like an alternate history. But it's about sin eaters, which were real things until like relatively recently. It was a punishment that you would be made to become a sin eater, and then basically when somebody died, you would have to eat this like ritual feast of different foods that represented different sins that they were guilty of, and then it cleared their soul so they could go to heaven, and then you were doomed to like carry their sins with you. So if you were religious, that was very, very scary. And it's about a young girl who becomes a sin eater, and it's like a feminist revenge story. The House Without Walls, this one I got for this Christmas actually. The majority of these books are relatively recent on my TBR, it's not too bad. And this is, I don't know very much about it, but it's a book that was written by a 12-year-old almost a century ago. This girl called Barbara Newhall Follett wrote this book when she was 12, and it's this like rediscovered feminist fable, but apparently it's very bizarre and surreal. Okay, so that's the whole top shelf. Next on this shelf we have American Pop by Snowden Wright. So a lot of these you might recognise from like quite recent Balancing the Books episodes. This is a book that I read an earlier form of it when I was working at a literary agency, and I absolutely loved it, like gave it 5 stars, but now it's actually out, it's published, and I'm intrigued to see how much has changed, how much is the same, so I want to reread this one. I've got Our Dark Secret by Jenny Quintana, another one I'm hoping to get to for Thrillerathon. So far I have managed to read 1 book a day, which is wild, so if I keep that going I will get to this one. Jenny Quintana has written a few thrillers, I haven't read any of them, so again it's always exciting discovering a new author, because if I like this one then there's loads more to choose from. Then I've got some books here that you guys might recognise if you watched my Trash My TBR. And maybe I shouldn't show you these because they're like book spoilers. Okay, I'm not going to, because I've got like my Trash My TBR video is coming and I don't want to spoil which ones I trashed and which ones I bought. But I will just tease you with, whew, there's 4 books here which I bought because you guys didn't trash them. I uploaded a video the other day that was a tag video talking about obscure books and like books that didn't have that many ratings on Goodreads, and in that I was talking about how when I was younger I used to just go to libraries or go to bookshops and just browse the shelves and pick things up randomly, whereas these days I'm so influenced by BookTube and by working in publishing that I recognise so many authors and titles that that's what makes me pick them up. So I went very deliberately to just look around and randomly pick things up that caught my attention. So I bought these 2 books. After I bought them I then looked on Goodreads and they weren't like obscure books, they actually had been rated by quite a few people, but it doesn't matter, I still experienced the fun of picking something up that I'd never heard of before. So the first one I got was The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. So this is translated from Japanese, and I've read quite a few Japanese books recently and loved almost all of them. And this one is about memory, which is another thing I absolutely love. So it kind of sounds like a very literary 50 First Dates. Because every morning the professor and the housekeeper are introduced to one another. So because of a head injury 17 years ago, the professor only has an 80-minute memory. So it sounds like it could be gimmicky, and I recently read Before I Go to Sleep, which I thought was rubbish. Like, I think this can be done really badly, but this seems like a really literary approach to it. And I'm just intrigued. And I thought it looked really nice, and I read a bit about the author and how she's like won all these awards. Yeah, she's won every major Japanese literary award, so that's a great sign. And the other one I bought on that trip was Trust Exercise by Susan Choi. So this starts with this a girl and a boy, the teenagers, who have just started their first term at a performing arts school and meet this like very charismatic drama teacher who initiates them into a dangerous game. And then we meet them 2 decades on and learn like the truth of what actually happened and how it's even darker than we thought. And then the final 2 I brought home from work recently. This is Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl by Andrea Lawler. So this one sounds really unusual. I researched it because I did a book break video recently on steamy books, and this was one of the ones that loads of people on the team said I should include. So it's kind of like the modern Orlando. So it's about this guy called Paul, but he's a shapeshifter, so he can change his body at will. So sometimes in the book, suddenly she is a woman called Polly who's in a relationship with another woman, but for most of the book he is a gay man called Paul. And it's kind of like this journey through all the different, like loads of different various queer subcultures. Yeah, and it just like after researching it for that video I thought I wanted to read it. And the most recent one I brought home is this. This is my Proof of the Harpy by Megan Hunter. I'm so excited to read this one. So this is about a married couple and the husband cheats on the wife, and so the wife says as like repayment she is allowed to hurt him 3 times. But it's not just like a straightforward revenge novel, it's apparently like quite like mythical, like fairy tale-y, a bit like otherworldly, surrealist. I'm just saying words now. It just sounds really interesting, and I've read one book by Megan Hunter before. She wrote The End We Start From, which was this like kind of apocalyptic almost novel, which I loved. So there you go. That was my TBR bookshelf tour. Thank you for suggesting that, Natalie J. Beatty. Let me know if you've read any of those and what you thought of them. And of course give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and hit that subscribe button below for new videos every week. See you next time.